All right, guys. So, welcome to the live. Sorry for being 2 minutes late. I don't know if you guys are getting this, but it seems like Facebook every other week changes like where you go live from. So sometimes I'm able to do it like directly from the group, and sometimes Scott, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And sometimes I have to do it from my personal page and go to the group and do the live that way. So it seems like they're kind of flip flopping or switching around their systems or whatever. So anyways, hope everyone is having a good week. Today we'll be going over like an important topic, and I hear this one very, very often. So a lot of times people oftentimes presume that being healthy or living a health conscious lifestyle is more expensive. So in this video today, hey Freddie, good to see you. Blake, good to see you. Vipan, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Let me know. Good to see you. Lupio, good to see you as well. So a lot of people are like, hey man, it's just too expensive for me to buy like organic food. It's too expensive for me to be healthy, et cetera, et cetera. I'm pretty sure maybe at one point some of you guys have said that to yourself, or definitely have heard someone say it to you. So in the conversation today, we're just gonna literally like break down the math on what's more expensive, being unhealthy and overweight or being healthy and fit. And then kind of the direct and indirect costs of both of those paths. And then you guys can kind of look over the numbers. And also, if you like, I might just actually upload it on our in the group as well, so you guys can see these numbers as well. And since it's the weekend, you can kind of jot down on how your expenses are looking and seeing maybe if you can kind of switch some things around and switch some funds to be a little bit more health conscious, and you can kind of determine what the right path is for you. So the topic today, I hear a lot of people say, like, oh, I can't be healthy because it's too expensive. But is it? Let's go ahead and break down the quick math. And let's start off with this. So we're going to break it down in a few different ways. We're going to start off with, is organic food really more expensive? Because one of the best things you can do, regardless of which diet you decide to go on, if it's like keto, being a vegetarian diet, having like a different type of omnivore ratio diet for your specific goals, whatever you decide on, it's most always an inarguable truth that if you rely on a whole food, meaning like non-processed food, so like a whole vegetable, a whole steak, whole brown rice, for example. John Smith, good to see you. Thank you for joining in. That it's already a huge step in the right direction. Now, in terms of what diet is right for you, we covered that in a different video, so we're not going to go extensively into that. You're welcome to check out that video or message me and I'll send it your way. But we're going to go over in terms of the cost of staying healthy and the cost of staying not healthy, and then kind of comparing the two in this video. So it's generally presumed, no one's going to argue that relying on whole food, whether you're a vegetarian or even a carnivore, is a far better strategy than relying on processed food or heavily on fast food, for example, all that stuff. Okay, so just that transition alone is a huge plus. But now, in terms of whole food, some people, like buy factory farmed food, or some people shop at least USDA organic, and then there's also, higher levels of integrity, like biodynamic, for example. But let's break down, we're just going to focus on the grocery store today and compare at least USDA organic certified food to factory farmed food. So you can find both at any store, like Whole Foods sells both items, Sprouts sells both items, Costco sells both items. Costco has a lot of USDA organic food. Even Walmart, I think Walmart, it's either Walmart or Costco, I forget exactly. Joel, good to see you. Thank you for joining. They're the biggest distributors of organic food in the US, which is surprising for a lot of people because they don't associate, like especially Walmart, with higher quality and food. But they're actually the biggest distributors of USDA organic certified products in the US. So much bigger, I'm sure. Brian, good to see you. Yep, no problem. Much bigger, I'm sure, than even Whole Foods, for example. And a lot of times the produce you find, the USDA organic produce you find at Walmart is actually much fresher than what you would find typically at Whole Foods, from my experience, because of the logistics between the stores. Typically, First of all, they get their food from oftentimes the very same farms, but Walmart typically has a very much faster turnaround. So you can get the food a lot. Stephen, good to see you. So you can get the food a lot fresher. Romeo, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Very cool name. Classic name, obviously. So yeah, so anyways, going back. So let's do this. On the research for my second book, George, good to see you. Joel, good to see you. On the research for my second book, I went to Sprouts Farmers Market. A lot of you may know Sprouts Farmers Market. You probably shop there. It's basically kind of like a higher end hybrid store where they do have a lot of factory farm stuff, but they have a lot of organic stuff as well. And when you break it down for like a 2,000 calorie diet, Renee, good to see you. When you break it down for a 2,000 calorie diet, and even if you get the protein, fats, and carbs to match, the ratios to match on a 2,000 calorie factory farmed industrial organic diet versus a 2,000 calorie, at least USDA organic certified diet at the grocery store, you typically get like a $5 difference per 2,000 calories, okay? So for a factory farmed 2,000 calorie diet, you typically would have to pay about $7.70. But for that same exact diet, but that's USDA organic certified, it typically will run about $12.20, okay? It might be a little bit higher now because the food prices have gone up, so maybe like $1 or $2 more, but the ratios are the same. Ratios are about the same. You'll get about a $5 difference or so. So really, it's just like a $5 difference, basically. So shopping for like a USDA organic diet per year, it would be, what is that, like $300 a month or something? If someone has a calculator, please do that. I'm not the best at mental math. $300 or $400 a month. So it'll be about, let's say, like $4,000 a year to shop for all of your food that's at least USDA organic certified. There's a higher level of integrity called biodynamic farming, which you typically won't find at the supermarket level. But honestly, it's already a huge upgrade just shopping for USDA organic produce. And I guarantee you, it's almost if you shop and eat just USDA organic whole food at the supermarket, meaning you rely on vegetables, fruit, meat, etc., etc., it's going to be very, very difficult for you to become overweight. There's a lot more you have to do to become like shredded, of course, and build muscle. You need to be on the proper, workout routine, lifestyle routine. I'm just focusing on nutrition on this video. But really, there's like just a $5 difference. So like factory farm food that's grown with a lot of, harmful biocides, which are pesticides, herbicides, rodenticides. If you look up any of these chemicals, like what are their main purpose? Their main purpose is basically to like kill living organisms, obviously. And last time I checked, we're living organisms as well. So it kind of adds up, So they're grown with that. They're grown with like heavy amounts of antibiotics, different types of antibiotics as well. A lot of especially the beef could be grown with like things called beta agonists or steroids. That makes it in the nutritional profile. They're fed also probably genetically modified corn and soy in particular, because that's what's used in raising farmed animals for the most part, because it's heavily subsidized by the taxpayer. So it's cheaper for the farmer to use those. And at least when you get USDA organic certified produce, it kind of negates all that. So with the USDA organic certification program, there are gaps, and there are gaps in the program, and I can talk about it for hours, but that's not what we're focusing on in this topic. With the USDA organic certification program, it's basically illegal to use antibiotics. In hen production, they could use it on the first day of birth, but then after that, they're not allowed to be given any antibiotics. Same exact thing with steroids, beta agonists, other growth promotants, genetically modified organisms aren't allowed to be used. Synthetic pesticides or biocides in general aren't allowed to be used either. So just by buying USDA organic produce, you're already decreasing the overall toxic load that you're exposing yourself to on a daily basis. You got to take into consideration the average newborn in America, born in an urban environment, is already born with about trace amounts of 200 different chemicals running and brewing and running through their body and brewing in their body 24/7. So that's definitely not good. And the lower your toxic load is, typically the leaner you will be as well, because you have to remember your body creates fat stores to be able to store toxicity away from its vital organ tissue. Okay, so remember, you can survive like without an arm, without your right arm, but you can't survive without your liver, or you can't survive without your lungs, for example. So your body tries to prioritize the health of its organ tissue over its muscle tissue, or your arm in this example. So it'll start forming body fat to take all those toxins further away from its organs and start storing it in the periphery of your body. Okay, so just by decreasing your toxic load, of course you still got to maintain a caloric deficit when you're trying to lose weight. It will help reduce your fat storage a tremendous amount. It would also obviously arguably help you reduce your chances of all sorts of cancers in your lifetime and other health complications associated with a lot of these chemicals that are proven through enough exposure to actually cause cancer and other forms of disease in your body. So going back to the price, Brian, let me see what Brian is saying here. I'll try to answer these guys and then go back to the price. A simple comparison as to what one may spend at fast food restaurant. Exactly. And we're going to get to that in a second. It's always I always tell people, Brian, it's like far more expensive to be unhealthy and overweight than it is to be healthy. And we're going to do the cost breakdown right here and just go through the numbers in detail. Okay, so remember, buying at least a USDA organic certified food at the grocery store all year round for 2,000 calories a day, which is more than enough for a lot of people, will run you about like $4,000-ish. I got to do the math again because it's about $12.70 a day. If someone can calculate that by 365 and give me the number, I probably should have done that before the chat. That would be great. I just kind of spaced out and forgot exactly what that number is. But let's just say it's around $4,000. Okay, so let's go ahead and break down the cost. And a lot of people, Edgar, good to see you, man. Hope everything's well. Let me know what's new in your corner, okay? Hope everything's good. So let's break down the cost, because a lot of times when I tell people like, oh, you should, at least as a first transition to regaining and finding your health, you should start buying organic food. And they're like, oh, it's too expensive. They literally, like 99% of the time, they literally don't know even the price of organic food. They just kind of say it's expensive because that's just what they heard. They never even did the research themselves, and they just presume that's the case. So remember, this person, let's just say hypothetically, this person said spending $4,000 a year on 2,000 calories worth of USDA organic certified food is too expensive. $4,000 per year, that's what this person says. Okay. Now, of course, we got to look at averages, okay? Let's look at how much the average American, I have a list here and I'm going to just read it off to you guys. Let's look at what the average American is spending on non-essential expenses per month and per year. And let's see if it is really too expensive. And I guarantee you, at the end of the call, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not. They're spending way more money on just being overweight and full of disease than they would be on just staying healthy. So the average person in the US spends about $1,500 a month on non-essential expenses, which basically comes down to about $18,000 a year on non-essential expenses, okay? Now, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. On the lower end, I found numbers where people spend about $8,000 to $10,000 a month as well. So it's between $8,000 to $10,000 a year, $8,000 to $10,000 a year to $18,000 a year. So let's just use this number, $18,000 a year. That's how much they're spending on non-essential expenses. Now, the next question is, like, what are these non-essential expenses? So let's go ahead and break them down. And once again, I'm just reading it off this list I found. Where's the source? I have it listed somewhere here. I'll post this stuff in our group at the end, okay? So you guys have access to this as well. So what are they spending their $1,500 a month on? Restaurant meals, $209.38. Drinks, $188.68. Takeout or delivery, $177.88. Buying lunch, $173.62. This is per month. Impulse purchases. I'm guilty of these sometimes too, especially with books on Amazon. They always get me, and I sometimes buy too many of them. But it happens. Impulse purchases, $108.97. Ride shares, which is okay. I don't disagree with that one. That's $96. Personal grooming, got to do that one. That's $94. Subscription boxes, that one probably don't need to do. $93.96 per month. Cable, $90. Online shopping, $84. Gym classes or memberships, $72.53. Paid apps, $23.24. TV or movie streaming services, $23. Music streaming services, $22. Coffee, $20. I know people that spend literally almost $20 a day on coffee. So that number is pretty low, but let's go with it. And then bottled water, $17.74. So that basically comes down to about $1,500 a month on non-essential expenses. $1,500 a month on non-essential expenses that I could also argue aren't really bringing any value or happiness to the person's life in a long enough time frame. In fact, it's adding most likely to their obesity and disease. And you have to take into consideration that right now, 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy, okay? So only 12% of Americans are actually metabolically healthy. So I could argue that these numbers typically would apply to the average person, okay? So this person is spending, let's say, $18,000 a year on non-essential expenses, and they just told me that they can't afford $4,000 a year on USDA organic certified whole food, chicken breast, steak, vegetables, fruit, etc. They told me they can't afford that $4,000, but they can afford $18,000 a year on these silly expenses that are just adding obesity, adding disease to their body, keeping them from having their ideal physique. Most of them, maybe not the gym services, obviously, and that stuff. But you get what I'm saying, okay? So it is the weekend. If you guys can, for like a practice lesson, just open up your Excel sheet, look at all your expenses, okay? Remember, for a 2,000 calorie diet per day, it costs about $4,000 a year on USDA organic food. See how much money you're spending on just BS that's not really adding much value to your life. Because I guarantee you, when you improve your health, when you optimize your health and your appearance, obviously that's not going to get rid of every problem in your life, but it will give you a huge boost of happiness and positivity in life. I guarantee it. You'll be able to date more comfortably, have higher self-esteem, have more energy, okay? Not have crazy energy swings. The list is endless. I don't have to say everything on this video. You guys can put A and B together. Let me see some of these questions here. So Vince, Lupilo, let's see. It's hard sometimes, but I lose weight only from the waist down all the weight in the upper body. All the weight is in the upper body. It's hard to lose. I mostly eat tuna, kale, salads, and small portions. So Lupilo, remember, there's a lot you can do with weight loss, okay? There's a myriad and 5 strategies, but really it just really comes down to having a weekly caloric average deficit. Remember, your body can never, ever, ever gain weight in a true caloric deficit. If that were the case, let's just use common sense, guys. If your body could actually gain weight while you're in a deficit, you literally don't have to worry about getting lost in the forest without food or ever starving to death, because your body will just stop losing weight at one point, okay? And that's not the case, obviously, okay? So there is no such thing as starvation mode. This is just gimmicky marketing stuff, okay? There is no thing as starvation mode. There is no thing as I can't lose weight because my hormones are all messed up. There is no thing my thyroid's messed up so I can't lose weight. All these are just BS things. Even if your hormones, if you're super maximally stressed out, of course, you're not going to have a good life, obviously. That's a different conversation. But And it will down-regulate your metabolism a little bit, but it's not like you're going to go to burning 0 calories. Literally, no one freaking burns 0 calories unless you're dead. Okay? You have a caloric deficit on a consistent basis, you will be losing weight all the time. There is a science to losing just body fat instead of muscle, or both, for example, but that requires a lot of customization and a good, thorough assessment with a good coach that usually takes about 2 to 3 hours before beginning a program with the person to determine that person's needs and goals and then go from there. So, Lupilo, also, you got to remember, you can't like pick where you want to lose fat. Everyone loses fat differently. Some people lose it all over equally. Some people lose it on their upper body and face first and then their midsection last. That's usually most likely the case. You lose it kind of like in your peripheries first and then your midsection kind of goes last. And then that lower belly fat area goes very like last. That's how it works for most people. In terms of fat distribution, in terms of where it's actually distributed, there's a bit of genetics involved there too. But a lot of times too, like your choice in lifestyle, your choice in nutrition, the amount of mental stress you're under in your life will also determine how your body fat is stored. So typically people that are like very stressed out, have low grade chronic anxiety, they typically kind of, their body begins to form kind of like a pear. They typically like store body fat in their lower chest and then kind of primarily like in their midsection around their like middle and lower ab area, and it's kind of like heavy there. So it kind of looks like a pear shape. So there are a lot of like lifestyle, like mental variables that go into where your body stores, could have more propensity to store fat. But at the end of the day, it's like you gotta establish that caloric deficit. And if you're not losing weight, that's because you're not in a caloric deficit for your body type and your activity level. And that differs from person to person. Like me, a caloric deficit is like 3,000 calories a day. That still puts me in a deficit because I have a lot of muscle mass on my frame, which requires always a lot of calories to sustain. But for the average person, if they're eating like 3,000 calories a day, even if it's really well-sourced food, they'll probably end up gaining quite a bit of weight. So everyone's different. In the group, I posted a bar chart. This is Vince. In the group, I posted a bar chart of my total spending on food before, after, making the changes suggested. Yeah, so Vince, thanks for posting that. Actually, it would be cool if I kept track with that with my clients as well. Because I always tell people, like my average client saves about, is in a net positive about $7,000 their first year on the program, which is exponentially more expensive than what the program actually costs. So like training with me typically, most always actually ends up saving people a lot more money. Plus they lose a lot of body fat. They look a lot better. Their blood work looks better. A lot of them get off pretty much all of their prescription medications. So it's an overall solid trade. Yeah, Brian, he posted it in the group, so it's already posted. Joel, I guess I want to start the bar chart too. New to the group. Okay, I posted in the group. Cool. Okay, I'm going to skip over some of these guys. So I'll keep that in mind, the BS I waste on food. Yeah, so guys, for the weekend, just write down your expenses and see how much you're spending on non-essential expenses. So non-essential expenses, the list I've gone over here, that would include like drinks, alcohol, like random drinks like that, restaurant meals, that's total non-essential. And restaurant meals will always keep you overweight, guys. I don't care how diligent you are during the week. Unless you're like super muscular, that's an exception, of course. Eating out always on the weekend will most likely set you back, okay? Not only financially, but aesthetically as well. Takeout or delivery, that's non-essential. Buying lunch, impulse purchases. Let's see, cable's kind of essential, I would say. Not like cable TV, but you need Wi-Fi and everything to be able to work from home and stuff like that. Paid apps, that's probably non-essential. TV, movie streaming services. Oops, not essential. I lost my pen there. Coffee. You could always just get coffee at home for a much cheaper price. It's not like you have to get rid of the coffee, but et cetera, et cetera. So, guys, remember, the average American would tell me they don't have money for organic food, which costs $4,000 a year. but they have 18,000 a year to spend on non-essential bullshit. Okay? And this is why 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy, overweight, obese, full of misery, pain, disease, because their core priorities are all out of whack. They need to put themselves first. They need to put their physical and mental health first. Okay, stop putting everything else first. Stop buying into corporate culture of consumerism. It's good to buy stuff, but don't be consumed by it. You should see who I have to work with. Yeah, so Brian, I always tell people, man, like if they don't get out of their toxic work environments or toxic relationships, no nutrition program or workout program will save you, because you're spending just so many hours in that misery. The best thing you could do is damage control through proper eating, which is better than not doing anything. But the best thing you can do, like I always tell people, for your health is clearly identify your core values. What are they? And then make sure your day-to-day life reflects that, So for me, it's like a huge core value is working from home, working for myself, not having to drive to work, doing my own projects, studying at least 15 to 20 hours a week. That's super important for me. Like continued education is mega important, okay? And I need that 15 to 20 hours to study. Having cool hobbies on the side, like I'm taking a rifle experts course, I'm going to pick up rifling and hopefully go to competitions as well. I like geometry. Kind of shooting rifles has like a decent amount of understanding of geometry in there, and it requires your physical body. So that way I'm not kind of glued to the gym environment to actually put that kind of physical fitness to work in a real environment, et cetera, et cetera. Another huge core value of mine is always staying fit. Okay, that's a huge core value. If you don't know your core values, that's totally okay too. One easy thing that I did to help me identify mine is just do a bunch of stuff I didn't want to do. And then right away, just note that, hey, this isn't making me feel good. Thank you very much. I wrote it down. Thank you for showing me what I don't want. Same goes with relationships. If a relationship doesn't work out, you should actually thank that person because you're like, well, thank you for showing me what I don't want in my life. That way I don't repeat the mistake, okay? You should be thankful for when you run into people like that because they give you the definition of what you do want. Because as the saying goes, in order to know what you do want, you have to first know what you don't want, unfortunately. But the good thing is do those things, take note that they're making you feel miserable, shitty, unappreciated, jot it down, go try something else. This time with a bit more of a definition about what you do want, and then hold yourself accountable too. I see people fall so much into these money traps. It's like they don't set boundaries for themselves, they go to a job and it's like, let's say 40,000 more per year, and it's clearly not meeting their core values. They can see that it's going to make them more miserable than their old job, but they're like, well, it's 40,000 more a year. I'll kind of justify it. And then they wonder why they're miserable their whole entire life and very overweight and stuff like that, because they go hand in hand. Food abuse comes from a lingering issues of misery and not feeling safe or appreciated in the world. Okay. So remember, when you're overweight, it's because you have low-grade chronic inflammation or high-grade, most likely. And where does all that inflammation come from? A lot of mental and physical pain in the person's life. It's not just aesthetic. There's a lot of pain in the person's life. Okay. So another few important stats, like the U.S. pre-COVID spent 147 billion to nearly 210 billion per year on helping the obese and overweight with their health problems that are self-imposed through poor lifestyle and nutritional choices. That's per year. Imagine what 200 billion a year could do to the school system, what great schools and educational systems you could have for the future. Now it's in the trillions. So obviously the biggest risk factor for developing complications from COVID that require hospitalization is just being obese and with many different health issues, pre-existing health issues already, okay? So now The economy has been shut down. Well, now it's opening up, obviously, a little bit, but has been shut down or closed down for a very long time. That cost trillions. Trillions. Okay, luckily, it looks like the country's bouncing back at least, but we'll see. So yeah, and then annual cost, remember, the annual cost of being overweight in terms of medical expenses is around $4,000 a year, $4,000 to $5,000 a year. So remember, this person hypothetically would tell you that I can't afford organic food, but they're spending $18,000 a year on non-essential expenses and another $4,000 a year on medical expenses. That's $22,000 a year. And this person literally just said they can't afford $4,000 a year on organic food. I just kind of like, when I hear stuff like that, and sorry if I'm kind of getting into it, it just hurts me, man, because I'm like, how could a person be so blind to their like self-imposed like misery, So you guys don't have to be. Just one quick practice you guys can do this weekend is, once again, jot down all your expenses, see where all that money is going. And I haven't even mentioned travel or any of that stuff here. Okay? So there's that. And then there's also the indirect cost. We talked about finances, which is obviously huge important, but there's an indirect cost of not optimizing your health, not optimizing your aesthetics. Your relationships are going to be limited, okay? Because it sucks, but a lot of times books are judged by their cover. Obviously, if a person decides to kind of stick through that relationship, there's going to be a lot more than looks that are required, but that's what kind of opens the door and opens a lot of possibilities for you. And remember, the biggest reason for divorce oftentimes is financial reasons, and also just loss of attraction, loss of physical attraction to the person. So there are like a lot of like financial costs and indirect costs, social costs, to just not putting your health and thus not putting your health or appearance as a higher priority in your life. Okay, so you have to be honest with yourself. You got to jot down all of these costs. Like, how much is this costing me? What am I really losing, like financially, socially, et cetera, et cetera. So that's up to you to decide. You can, of course, bullshit yourself, but remember that it's not going to get you anywhere. So when you do this practice today, try to be really honest with yourself. And sometimes honesty hurts, but at least they'll get you to where you want to be faster. So I use mint.com. Yeah, Vince, I was actually going to ask you what software you're using. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll actually suggest it to some of my clients, and we'll see the trend. That's a cool analytic to keep track of. Okay. Hope everyone is doing well. It was great to see you guys. Vince, Bob, see. Brian, good to see you, man. Hope everything's well. Apilo, good to see you. John, I saw John popped in here. Joel, good to see you guys. Let's see what else. Edgar, hope everything's well, man. Let's see here. Renee, good to see you. Romeo. All right, you guys. Great to see all of you guys. Have a good weekend. Some good movies are out. I watched Venom 2 2 weekends ago, last weekend. Honestly, it wasn't that good. I loved the first one, but the second one just, oh man, it just didn't do it for me. They didn't make Carnage, in my opinion, powerful at all. He didn't stand out. I thought it would be good. It looked really cool, but I was kind of disappointed. They do have the new James Bond movie out, and they also have this movie Matt Damon is in. It's called The Last Duel. It's like a medieval movie. That one looks super cool. I was kind of thinking about seeing James Bond today, but I'm actually probably going to go see The Last Duel because I really like Braveheart, Joan of Arc, The Messenger with Mila Jovovich was honestly like probably one of my favorite movies. What else? Yeah, so James Bond is out as well if you guys are more into like those spy thriller movies. But The Duel looks super cool. I'm going to go see it, and I'll let you guys know how it goes, okay? All right, hope everything's well. Andrew, good to see you as well. Thanks for popping in. All right, take care, guys.